hell no. Now that's better. This is your president, MiZZ Entertainment, and welcome to the Power Hour. We getting ready to kick this thing off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. All right. What's up, everybody? This is your girl, MiZZ Entertainment. I am your president of the Real S People Society. So welcome to the Power Hour on Terradome Entertainment Radio, where we play the best hits from old school to new school hip-hop, R&B, and more. So go to TerradomeENTRadio.com, click on the Listen Live button, or you can catch us on Live 365 app. And of course, I'm not in the place alone. Let me introduce my Chief Entertainment Officer, DJ Talented.
What's going on, world? What's going on, world? My famous saying is, it's better to be above it than under it. You dig?
You dig. And in the studio for the first time on the Power Hour, she's a board-certified physician and pioneer in whole body medicine. With over 15 years of experience, she has revolutionized patient care by integrating mind, body, and soul in her unique approach to health. Coming to us from Chi-Town, welcome, Dr. Martin.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good. So before we get started, I always do a wellness check. How was your week so far?
Good, busy. After the event that we came from, I've just been running, but I always say it's good to be busy, so.
That is true. Unless it's too busy, that's when your stress come in, but that's when you come in.
Exactly. No, I would say it's good stress, and I always say that you never want a stress-free life, you want a stress-light life. So we always need a little bit of stress to kind of push us for our potential, so.
There you go. DJ Talented, how was your week? It's Friday. Should have been great because it was my birthday week. So what you talking about?
You know, Wednesday we had to do some things for the wife for her birthday. But the rest of the week has been, one of them weeks.
Whatever. It is always a great week when you are with me. How about that? Thank you. You've been so nice this week. Say what? Well, my week has been, it's been good. I am blessed. I am turning another year older. My mom did not make it to see this age, so I'm definitely blessed and glad to be here and still in health. Right mind is questionable sometimes. We'll see. But anyway, let's go ahead on and get into this discussion with Dr. Martin. Play my intro, please.
Here it comes.
All right, Dr. Martin, let's start from the very beginning. Now, your father is also a doctor. So would you say that influenced your decision to pursue a career in medicine?
That's a great question. First, I want to say happy belated birthday, since it was your birthday week. It's always a blessing to have another year around the sun. So
Yes.
We want to make sure that we celebrate that. So that's a great question. And so that's always been something that we discuss in my family because I'm the oldest of 5. And so the question was my dad whispering in my ear as a little kid, like, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a doctor. And I don't have any memories like that, but I know for as long as I could remember, I was interested in how the body works and medicine. And so I was one of those little kids that was looking through his medical books. And, back then you could see everything. And so we don't take as many pictures of different medical conditions now as we did in the past. And so I was always looking through his books, always asking questions about the body. But he was somebody that, as I got older, was very much like, you have to find your own passion, and that this industry is just too hard to do if you didn't love it. So that was one of the things he told me as I got closer to going to medical school, to really not do it unless I love it, because it's too hard to do if you don't love it, because there's going to be nights on residency when you're up for 24 hours at a time and you're like, why am I doing this? And so you really need to have that passion, and it couldn't just be something that I followed behind him with. And there's easier ways of making money than, going to school for 11 years to become a doctor. So um, he may have had some influence there in terms of me seeing him doing something that he loves, but I always say that I came to it through my own passion as well.
So you mentioned going through medical school and your residency. Let's talk about that. So how was that journey? Tell me about that journey from going, especially being Black female, going through medical school and on to your own practice.
Oh, so I don't think it was as hard as my dad had to experience. So my dad went to medical school and graduated in 1980. So being a Black male then was very hard. There weren't too many Black males in his class. And I believe he only had one, there were two females in his graduating class, and one was Black, one was white. And so he kind of prepared me that, don't let them see you cry. You need to, make sure that you are prepared and that they're going to be harder than you. And I think we all kind of grow up, especially in this community, hearing that we have to be twice as good to get half as much. And so I was always sort of prepared for this idea that I could not mess up. And I think a lot of women, especially Black women, can talk about this, whether or not you're an attorney or some other professional, that you feel this tremendous need not to mess up because there's more of a spotlight on us. um, I did residency in Little Rock. And so one of the experience there was, again, if I thought that there were few, people of color in the medical profession up north here in Chicago, there were even less in Little Rock. And so frequently people were not used to seeing a Black physician, and especially a Black female physician. And so I was frequently referred to as the nurse, or they wanted to call me by my first name, which is why I've been very insistent as my career has gone on to be called Dr. Martin, because I was frequently asked, well, what's your first name? So that they could call me, Alexa or Miss so and so. And I'm like, no, it is doctor. And that didn't really happen with my male counterparts. Some of the other things that I would experience is just by being a woman, and probably was exacerbated by being a Black woman as well, is that nurses would tend to not have a problem paging me in the middle of the night, but my male counterparts, they didn't want to call. And it wasn't that they were meaner, they just didn't want to bother them, but they didn't mind bothering me at 2 or 3 in the morning to say, I was looking through someone's chart and I don't think they had a bowel movement today. And I'm like, well, they're sleeping now. But there was less of a hesitancy to interrupt the female physicians. It felt like, well, you're supposed to be helping us. And so there were lots of those little microaggressions. I also dealt with sometimes, people would make remarks. I remember I was on an ICU um, rotation, and we had an attending who was referring to a patient that wasn't doing so well. So it was time to have a conversation about, maybe pulling, some life support off of him or some life preserving measures. And she made a comment that, well, those people are really religious. And she was referring to those people as this Black family and not realizing that I was there. And so when she locked eyes with me, her eyes got really, and she was like, well, I didn't really mean that. And so there was a lot of that, not being used to having someone of color in these settings, that people said things that they were just kind of used to saying. But on the same other end, I think it was really important for people to see a person of color, because I think there were things that I knew about our community. I know about being a woman of color, being a person of color, that made my care of someone who looks like me a little bit different. And that's why representation is so important, especially in medicine.
So that was definitely a culture shock coming from Chicago to Little Rock. You talking about Little Rock, Arkansas? It's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was. How long were you there? Because I know that was an interesting shift.
So I was there for 3 years, but here's the interesting part. I was there during the pandemic. So I
Mm.
was there from 2018, so July of 2018 to 2021. And so I had a good year and a half before the pandemic hit. So being in Little Rock during the pandemic, during a residency, it was definitely a culture shock, to say the least.
Whew, yeah, that was definitely. I just passed through there. Tell me what was your most challenging and rewarding being in the medical field, a medical career?
Well, I think the most rewarding thing is being able to, I'm big on health literacy. And so every time I'm able to get my patients or my clients to understand their health. So I was known for sitting down with my patients and going over their lab work. And so I always took really great pride in my patients being able to say, oh, yeah, my kidney function improved before I would even say it. So we'd break it out and they knew the drill. Let's go through all of the labs. And I would say, okay, Dr. Jones, you tell me what's going on. And they would say, oh, my sugar's improved. And so I would also have other colleagues that would tell me if I needed, to send my patient to an endocrinologist because we were doing something additional. There's like, your patients are the most informed people. And this had nothing to do with educational background. And so I would have people who, barely finished high school to all the way up to doctorates, but I treated them all the same in that my job as a physician and the way that I think about primary care is that you have an obligation for your patients to understand. And it doesn't matter how long that takes for that to happen. And so I think a lot of people come to see their doctors and they assume that if I don't understand, it's my fault, where it really is on us to be able to explain what's going on for you. So I think for me, that is something that I take a lot of pride in, this idea that not only am I empowering you,
Hmm.
um, health to learn what's going on so that you can ask the questions. And if I'm doing something, you should be able to say, well, why are we doing this, Dr. Martin? Is there another alternative? But if you don't even know to ask those questions, you can't do that. So that's something that I will continue to do in my practice. And so that's something I'm very proud of. I believe you asked me another question. Was it the hardest things?
Challenging. What has been most challenging for you?
So I think what's been most challenging is, especially when we're working in our community, and I predominantly prior to starting my own practice was working in Black and Brown communities. And so that's the communities that I was working in. I came back to Chicago and I worked on the south side of Chicago. And so Black and Brown was who I was seeing. I think the thing that's been tough is there's an access issue. So not only are we not knowing very much about our health, we also have limited resources. Many times I would have been the first person of color that any of my patients had seen. And so a lot of times I would get people who would come to me and there were already so many health conditions, or I would catch a cancer that should have been caught on a preventive screening years ago.
Oh,
And so
wow.
those were the things that were most challenging for me. Or someone who would say, um, you know, a patient whose kidney function wasn't doing so well, but they were never told. And so it was kind of this idea that, like, oh, well, that's so common in our community, so that it wasn't even thought about as something to tell a patient. So then I'm telling them, you're at stage 3, out of 5 for your kidney function. And they're hearing this for the first time. And so that became something that was very challenging, because you want to do a good job. And it did lead to a little bit of burnout because if you're seeing 20 to 24 patients a day, everyone's showing up because they know that you're going to care. It can mean that you're doing a great job, but then you're taking the burden on yourself, and it leads to not having the self care. You started this talk about how are you doing, a wellness check, right? So doctors, we all want to help our patients, but then when you're seeing so many people and there's a need, that sometimes people have not gotten the best care, it means that you're taking good care of your patients but maybe not so good care of yourself.
Okay. Was that the reasoning for transitioning into your own practice?
That was part of it, a lot of it. So I tend to be, a recovering people pleaser. And I'm somebody who always kind of puts my patients first. So I think the first thing that I identified is that seeing somebody for 15 to 20 minutes in a visit was not enough time to address everything that I wanted to address. There's so many times where somebody wanted to stop me and say, well, what about this? Am I eating the right food? Or they wanted to talk about something stressful. And for me, I just realized that just taking care of the most immediate things wasn't going to be the way in which somebody got to good health. And mind you, I was the top physician in my clinic. So I was the physician lead. I was a partner. I hit all of my metrics. I had, one of the lowest hospitalizations rates. I was a highly rated Medicare doctor. I think I was the top rated Medicare doctor in that area. And so based off of their scale, I was doing well. My patients were having good outcomes. But for me, I knew there was something missing. And that if I just had a little bit more time with people, they wouldn't have to see me so often. We would catch things sooner.
Mm-hmm.
We could do a more comprehensive thing. And then just talking about the physical part was missing. And so that was something that I started to feel through training, through my work outside of training, after I came out of residency. And then it started to get exacerbated by the fact that it didn't feel sustainable. I felt like a factory worker, and my colleagues felt like factory where we were burnt out. We didn't have time to look through labs. We're working through our lunch. We're bringing work home. And I was like, this is not sustainable, especially for a country that is going into a physician shortage. Who's going to want to come to medicine if we don't treat our doctors the same way we would want to be treated? And so I knew it wasn't working for me, but it definitely was not going to be sustainable overall. And that I would get good outcomes, but that I wouldn't be around long enough to continue to do medicine. And it was taking away from my desire to want to continue practicing. And so I started to think about, well, how could it be done differently? And the first part of that was I took weight loss, because this is when we started getting all the weight loss medications, those Ozempics, the GLP-1s. And I realized that people would lose weight, but as soon as we stopped it, the weight would all come back. And I was like, yeah, because we're not addressing the emotional, physical, we're not addressing the, spiritual, the purpose for someone. And if you don't address all of those things, the weight's always going to come back, because it's just not about weight. And so I started to build on that. And that's where my practice started to come around, this idea of whole body, that you have to treat the mind, body, and soul to get the best outcomes. And so that's how Intuitive MD came about. And I just took a leap of faith and said, I'm leaving. I left. My last day of work was December 28th of 2023. And I took the leap to start seeing patients in my practice at the end of February of this year.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell me more about your practice and how you're different from just, I guess what we call the norm for as doctors.
Well, one of the things that I think that distinguishes me, there's a lot of doctors out there. Now we've got things like direct primary care. So that's what I thought I was going to do, which is kind of a membership-based way of doing it. People don't take insurance, so you're still seeing fewer patients. Most doctors will see 8 patients in a day. So when I left, that's what I thought I was going to be doing, a subscription-based. But I said, you know what? I don't want to get caught still doing medicine the same way that I was doing. And so the idea was, how do I take the knowledge and skills that I have from working with complex chronic diseases and, preventing people from getting into the hospital, and combine it with my understanding of precision medicine, DNA testing, diagnostics, and then energy work to see if I can combine it into a better way of doing that. And so transitioning, the first thing that, I kind of thought about is, one, the 1 hour appointment was the thing that I wanted to create as a standard, because I feel like you learn so much about somebody in that 1 hour appointment. Just like we're doing a power hour, I essentially do a power hour with people. And so that gives somebody 15 minutes to tell me their story from beginning to end. And that is so important, especially when you're a diagnostician, to be able to hear the whole story. There are little things about what's going on with somebody that when you're rushed, if the whole appointment is only 15 minutes, that means I probably interrupted you after the first 30 seconds to ask, what about this? What about this? Because I'm on a time crunch. And so allowing someone to get out their whole story. I do a pretty comprehensive intake form. So even before you see me, I'm looking at everything. I have a semi-photographic memory. And so I'm able to kind of get down what's going on with somebody. And already the wheels start turning. Oh, this, and this is going on. But hearing the story from the person, being able to do a full comprehensive exam, looking at you from top to bottom, getting you on the scale. There's so much to learn in just that first appointment. So I would say that that's one of the things that differentiates me from other physicians. And there's this idea of personalizing it. And so I don't come at it in one way, that this is the same way that everybody else needs to be. I believe that there's a perfect lifestyle for you. There's an ideal life and body for you, but there's not this one size fits all. And sometimes people don't like being in the gray. And so I find that a lot of people who are working in the health coaching sphere, or people who are doing lifestyle sort of coaching, there's this idea that they have a structure and this applies to everyone. Whereas I really want to know about you. What does an ideal body look like for you? What does ideal health look like for you? And then we create a program around that. For some people, that's a 90-day program because they want to lose weight. And I believe 90 days is what it kind of takes to start making those lifestyle changes that are sustainable. For other people, that might mean, we work together for a very short period of time, and then you have the skills you need to move on. And for some other people, they come to me just for a second opinion. They want somebody who's going to look at the full picture. And I've always been really good at looking at the full picture and coming up with a plan. In terms of the way that I approach weight loss, I believe that there's this idea of a set point, mind set point and body set point. And so when I use the same sort of medications that maybe other doctors use, I also know that your body's used to a certain weight. So if you're 200 pounds and you've been 200 pounds for 10 years, it's going to be a lot harder to get you from 250, to 200, because your body wants to stay at that weight. Mm-hmm. It doesn't care if it's healthy or not for you. And so the closer we get to you physically in that weight, there's going to be all of this other stuff that starts coming up, because the mind also, and psychologically, you want to stay at that weight. And so for a lot of my patients, we'll get to a goal. They may have lost 30 or 50 pounds, and we'll get to this place, they're doing the exact same thing and they can't lose weight. And that's usually not about their habits at this point, right? They've created a foundation. It's usually something else going on. That may be a time for us to talk about, okay, let's talk about the last time you weighed this amount. What was going on? And sometimes there was a grief, something may have happened. A parent died, or you were in another country, or you were this weight, but you didn't really feel good about yourself. And if you don't address that, we can't get past that boundary. And usually once we do that, the weight just starts coming off again. And so you have to think about it in a whole person approach. And I think that's where I'm different than a lot of other physicians doing this. And you're always going to work one-on-one with me. I'm not going to be pawning you off to see somebody else that I've gotten you into my practice and now you don't work with me. You always have access to me.
Okay. Now you have something called clients that's feeling gifted yet dissatisfied.
Yes.
Talk about that. How do you describe that typical profile?
So for me, I think about this person, and maybe a little bit of that is about me as well. This idea that, when I talked about earlier, that I've always been a top student. I've always gotten the awards and all of these things, but there was a little bit of feeling like there's something more, that, I wasn't totally living in my purpose, that I was a little bored in this life, that I wanted a little bit more. And the reason why I use gifted and dissatisfied is because I meet so many professionals, sometimes, or business owners, or I'm working with a couple of people who are Gen Zers, so that, they're teenagers or in their 20s, and they're doing well, but they're not doing well, if that makes sense. They're slightly unhappy. And I could describe that was me. I was coming home. I was excited when my patients would have a win. I was excited when I cured something or I found something unusual. And then I'd come home and I was exhausted. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do anything else. I wanted to sit on the couch and just eat and go to bed. And then I would wake up and I was dreading getting to work, and I didn't understand why. but I'd get there and I was ready, because once you start your flow of the day, you would keep going. And so I tried to create a practice that I needed. When I was 40 pounds overweight, and when I was, feeling what I would think was probably high functioning depression, and feeling like, what is the purpose? What am I doing? I needed someone to say that that was a signal for change. And so when I say gifted and dissatisfied, it's this idea that we need to shift the way that we think about medicine and health. Health is our greatest wealth. We get one body. We have it's the asset that's the most unique asset in this world. There's no other body like your body or my body,
True.
and it's specially designed for us. Yet we treat our cars better than our bodies sometimes. I know guys that, you cannot eat in their car. You better not, even look at their car wrong because they're worried that we'll get a scratch on it. But then we're treating our bodies poorly. And when I'm saying bodies, body, mind, and soul, we are not feeding ourselves the way that we would feed someone else. We are not nourishing our purpose the way we would nourish someone else's purpose. And so when I say gifted and dissatisfied, I believe everyone's got a genius or a talent in them. You were here for something. And if you don't feel like you're living in your purpose, if you're stressed out, if you're tired, if you're like, why can't I muster the energy? Then that's a signal for change. And the people that come to me know there's something wrong with the way that they're doing things, even if they're winning or seemingly winning on paper. And so whether that's a teenager or somebody in their 70s who's like, I never thought I could lose weight, I never thought I could reverse my diabetes. My point is, there's always opportunity for change. And as long as you're alive, every day is an opportunity to turn it all around. And that's what I mean by gifted and dissatisfied. If you know there's something wrong, I don't care if you've got 100 people in your life saying you're doing well. If you don't feel like you're living your best life, that's an opportunity to find the coach, find whoever it is that you need to see to make that shift. And if you see me, you get a physician, a healer, and a coach. So, but you don't have to see me. All I'm telling people is that's a signal for change. And because we live in a physical 3D world, a lot of times that shows up in a physical way, but it doesn't always.
Okay. So, question, how do you integrate your precision medicine with the energy healing in a typical treatment plan?
Okay, so that's a great question. So I'm new to energy healing in the traditional way that I'm thinking about it. So it was suggested to me that I probably always was doing some sort of energy work without knowing it. So the idea that we all come into this world with some God-given talents, and that maybe I always had a talent for healing, and that may be part of the reason why I can easily see what's wrong with somebody. And so as a good little student, I never thought about that. I just continued to learn medicine, and I've always been an avid reader and learner. So that's part of the reason I love medicine. I love the human body. I love the human condition because you're constantly learning. You don't come here knowing everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, the energy work component came in because I had, you heard me speak at an event. So you heard me say that I had some miraculous things happening with my patients. My patients were healing things that maybe we would think traditionally shouldn't be easily healed. And so I had some of those stories happen. And I had more than one person suggest, maybe you should learn some energy work. And at the time, and this was more than a year ago, I said, I'm a serious doctor. That's some woo woo stuff. I don't, believe in that. I don't even know what that would mean. And somebody suggested, why don't you just go and do one class and see how it is? And so I found a place here in Chicago that teaches Reiki. And I say energy work and not Reiki because I learned in that tradition, but I don't know that I practice it in the traditional sense. So Reiki is a hands-on or hands-off energy work. And the idea is that you allow source energy, that is the way that's what's animating all of us, to come through you into the person that you're working on. And so I learned Reiki, and so I'm certified in Reiki, and it was helpful for me where there was a lot of chaos and my brain was always running, running, running. When I'm doing energy work on people, it's one of the few times that things are just quiet for me. And so, what I believe my practice is that Source, God, knows where the energy and the healing needs to happen. So, I tack it at the end of my visit. So, if somebody sees me for an hour, we do all of the stuff we need to do for that first 45 minutes. And then the last 15 minutes is going to be energy work where I lie you down. I use music, but I set it to a certain frequency for healing. And then I just do hands on healing. And so, for the most part, most people will feel some warmth, whereas I usually have cold hands. My hands get very warm when I do energy work, and I do it for 15 minutes. And my belief is that, the energy will go where it needs to go. Sometimes I will feel something, especially emotion. If there's profound sadness, sometimes that will come up pretty prominently, but I don't usually expect to feel anything. I don't tell you, oh, I felt a blockage here or your heart chakra is this. I don't do any of that. I don't do any bioscanning. I just believe Source knows where the energy needs to go and that I am just the vessel for doing that. And that I was given this talent and it works really nicely with precision medicine. So the talent of being able to kind of look at somebody and along with all the information that they tell me, knowing what's going on. For example, sometimes somebody will tell me something and I'll hear something completely different. They'll tell me like, I'm feeling really anxious or something like that. And I might hear, I don't think I can do this. And so I'll reflect that back to someone. They say, well, how did you know that's what I was thinking in my head? And I don't know that it's necessarily that. I think I came into this world with a talent for intuition and healing. And I was lucky enough to fall into medicine to marry those things together to make me a better physician.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. We were talking about stress, high stress. Are there or what are the most common misconceptions that high stress professionals have when it comes to managing their health?
I think the thing that we were talking about, that if you're winning, that the stress isn't an issue, that the stress isn't affecting you. And working with older patients, one of the things that they've always told me was, I wished I addressed this sooner, but I was taking care of my kids. I was working. I was worried about other things. And so because it was working, they didn't think it was a problem.
Mm.
So we see so many of these things, especially in our community and especially with our Black women, that I would see them, and their blood pressure was through the roof or their sugar is out of control. So one of the things about stress, we're looking at a hormone, cortisol. Cortisol in short doses is important. We have it because we needed to be able to run away from a lion, right? But when you're stressed all the time, then you're going to start getting belly fat. It's going to be harder to control your blood pressure. It's going to be harder to control your sugar. And then when you have those issues, diabetes, hypertension, then you're at risk for other things, cardiovascular diseases, things like heart attacks and strokes. And so I would have many times women who they're taking care of their grandbabies and all of these things. And I would always press them to say, what happens if you disappear today?
Right.
Everyone would have to figure it out. So if everyone would figure, and they said, yeah, I was like, your daughter would figure out, childcare because she would have to, right? Your son would figure out where to live because he would have to. And so if that is true, that if you disappeared tomorrow, yes, people would be sad and devastated, but they would be able to figure it out. Why can't they figure it out on your behalf now? Why can't we say no now? And I think that's one of the things I see commonly with high stress professionals. And I work with a couple of professionals where it's a boundary issue. So much of our identity is centered around, if I'm not working hard enough, what am I doing?
Right.
And that hardness of the work is what's important. And that is what got you to where you need to be. And I was one of those people. I think sometimes I still am, that if it's not hard, what am I really doing? Like, it's too easy. And the ease of something doesn't necessarily give it value, nor does the hardness of it give it value. And so I think those two things, this idea that life has to be hard and centering around your habits. So sometimes I'll have women who are very thin because they keep themselves so busy, they don't eat. And it's their lifestyle now is dependent. They will only stay thin as long as they stay busy, because the minute they relax, that's when they want to eat. But it's also their body saying, this isn't a healthy way to be. And then on the other side, I have women who eat because they're comforting themselves. That's the only pleasure or play that they get in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this idea of stress not being an issue because I'm winning, if I look like I'm winning, if my family thinks I'm successful, if I've got the degree, if I've got the money and I'm able to buy the things and my kids are healthy, that's not a problem. And I think that's a false narrative for a lot of people. Now, if you've got a stressful job, but you are having all of these other things that, you're healthy, you're happy, you're able to have that balance, that's a totally different thing. But if you're stressed out, but you look good on paper, everything looks good, but you don't feel good, then that's a message to change. And then this boundary, this learning to say no, this idea that we don't have to work so hard for it to be a value, and that we're worth it. We're born worthy. And I think a lot of women in our community don't feel this idea that if I'm not taking care of everyone and everything, then I don't have utility and I'm not worthy. But you're born worthy even if you do nothing for anyone else but yourself.
So that was my next question was, what were the top three things you will say to those that are stuck between career success and all that stress and then the actual personal health? And what I heard was definitely have those boundaries and be okay with saying no.
Yes.
And
So I like to say do the fast no, slow yes.
okay.
When you're when you're a people pleaser. I'm still a people pleaser, but I'm working on it. And so that fast no is that idea that you say no first, because I think a lot of our default is yes, and then I'll make it happen. I'll figure out how to make it happen, even if you don't really feel it. So when somebody's on such another extreme with boundaries, I usually will tell them, do that fast no, slow yes, meaning your default is no. You can always circle back and say, hey, I had some time in my schedule. Let me see if I can do it. But by defaulting to the no, it allows you to really see, is this something that I can do? I need to do? Am I just saying yes because I feel guilty in some way? So that would be that first one that you kind of already talked about. The second one is what we were talking about, this born worthy idea, this idea that you are worthy even if you don't do anything else for anyone.
Yes.
And part of that, I always remind people that think about if you were somebody who was quadriplegic and somebody's taking care of you and doing all of your functions in a day. We would never say that that person doesn't have value or impact in this life, even though they cannot do anything else for anyone else.
Agree.
So with that concept, the idea is that you are already born worthy. And so if you know you're born worthy, there's not this constant need to feel like if I'm not doing all the time. And a lot of that I find, especially for women who, like me, had to be caretakers from a very young age. I helped take care of my younger siblings. And so when you grow up either as the oldest or somebody who is a caretaker from an age usually earlier than you should have been doing, there's this feeling that if I'm not useful, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
If I can't be helpful, why am I here? And so that is a hard concept. But when you learn that committing to yourself and self-love is one of the greatest acts you can do in this life, I think it shifts your perspective that I'm not taking away from anyone else by doing for myself. I'm actually showing up as a better version of myself. And that's going to be helpful for me and everyone else I love. And the last one that you kind of hit on would be that just because you've decided that things are stressful doesn't mean you're not going to be successful by stepping away. And I think that's another limiting belief that sometimes we have. And I had it too. I thought, oh, if I start working out first thing in the morning, which I did in my previous job, I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning because by the time I got home, I was too tired. And
Yes.
so I said, why don't I give to myself first? So I started working out at 5 a.m. You've got to set up an environment to be successful. So the way I did it was my trainer came to my building. We have a gym in my building. And so when I woke up at 4:30 to get ready to go down there at 5, he was already on his way. And so I would wake up and say, oh, I don't want to go work out. I'm tired. Let's just go back to sleep. But I knew he was already on his way and that I'm not the sort of person that's going to cancel on somebody once they're coming. So I set it up that way so that I would make it in for myself. And I thought, well, you're getting up so early, you're working out. There's no way you're going to have this energy for your job. But by giving to myself first and not giving myself what was left over, I actually, people noticed at work, they're like, oh, you look so happy, you're losing weight, you look great. And what I thought was taking away from my patients, my loved ones, the people in my life, I had more energy. I was actually, I had things going for me. I joined a rowing team. Like there were other things that I was doing. And so I found that by giving to myself, I actually showed up better. And so I got a promotion, I got all my bonuses, and so I think there's this false narrative, and I don't know if society kind of pushes this, that if you start giving to yourself, you're going to be a poor employee, or you're going to be less successful if you're not constantly climbing that ladder. And I just don't believe it's true. And the evidence that I've seen from people I've worked with and myself is that it's not true. If anything, it's the opposite, that the more you give to yourself, you're living in your purpose, you're shining differently, your energy is differently, and you will be more successful.
I love it. So, because I've struggled with that too, because by the time I finished everything during the day, I'm tired. So I have to start getting up during early in the morning and put me first as far as like working out, and then start the rest of my day. Because once I get started with answering emails, doing this, doing that, and by the time you stop, it's like I don't feel like doing nothing. But sitting on the couch and just relaxing my mind. So thank you for that. You give me more inspiration. So tell me, what's next for your practice? What are you doing?
Well, what's next for my practice, I think right now is what I've been doing, which is kind of, making sure that I'm getting the word out. I think there just needs to be more exposure about people taking care of their health in a different way. I don't want to see when everything is too late and we're dealing with an emergency and we've got to put out the fires. And when I mean that is that, I've spent so much of my, young physician career taking care of people and coming to me when they've already got the stage 2 or 3 cancer, or sometimes stage 4, or when they've already, the blood pressure's out of control, their weight's out of control. And yes, I can fix that. I'm very good at doing that. But I want people to start reframing it to the fact that you're getting these little whispers in life that something needs to change. And so it can be enough that you're feeling too tired when you get home. It can be enough that I don't like the fact that I don't, I'm not able to fit in my airplane seats. That can be enough for to say that I want change. It
Yes.
can be enough that I don't like the way my clothes are fitting, or that it's taking me longer to get dressed. It costs me more to find the clothing that I want. That can be enough. So I really want to change this way in which we think about health and whole body harmony. That if my body and soul are not in harmony, and you're not always going to have harmony, there's going to be times, especially when you're a business owner, that you're going to be spending less time working out and more time, sitting in front of a computer, and that's fine. Part of what I teach people is what's the ideal thing for you, and learning your body's signals so that when things are getting out of control, how do I rein that back in?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so part of that for me is doing what I'm doing now, which is, taking the invitations to speak about whole body medicine anytime I can, to speak on precision medicine, personalized medicine. Why is this important? I think that there is a lot of misinformation out there. And us doctors, we've been kept so busy by the infrastructure that's not sustainable at this time. So many of my colleagues are burnt out, like I was. And so I think talking about this alternative way of of taking care of your health is going to be important, because most people don't know they can see a doctor that can do this. They don't know that there's a different way of, and that they don't have to wait till there's a problem. And so getting away from this problem based practice. I think the other thing that's next is, as my practice builds, creating community centers, allowing for me, part of my practice and my faith and giving back is this idea of creating a practice in which 10% of my practice is always going to be left aside for scholarship. And so we're
Nice.
in this building era right now, but as I have more to give and have more overflow, I would like to be able to provide services for anyone who comes to me. And so the third component of that is more education and more health literacy. I'm on the board of the Illinois Academy of Family Physicians. So one of the things we do every May is we go up into Capitol Hill and we advocate on the behalf of our patients, the way that Medicare is paying out to physicians and hospitals. So we talk about those things. So still being somebody who's saying there's a different way of doing this, making sure that people understand how to eat whole foods. We live in such a toxic food industry here in the US. What are
Yes.
the ways around it that's not going to bite your wallet?
Yes.
Because eat better, but it's not as affordable as it is in Europe, right? So those are the things that as we build, but I think right now it's about exposure. I just want to help as many people as possible be empowered with their health, whether that is, through working with me or doing a 90-day program, or just learning about the possibility that things can be a different way. And you don't have to work with me for that to happen, but just knowing that things are not hopeless, that things can be turned around, is the message that I really want people to know. We can reverse disease. You can lose that weight. You can live a life where you pop up and you're not drinking. I haven't had any caffeine, not drinking any coffee, but I'm so passionate about what I'm doing that now I pop up in the morning because I want to see my patients. I want to see my clients. I want to talk about whole body medicine and precision medicine and personalized medicine. And I want that for everyone.
Good. So, you know, with one of the few good things that came out of COVID was we had to find a different way of, I guess, serving people. So, do you do virtual counseling?
I do. So my preferred method is, I love to at least be able to meet somebody in person whenever possible to do energy work, but I can do the same thing virtually.
Okay. So,
So
how?
I
Go ahead. I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
So I've had clients where I've done a complete 90-day and they lived in a different state. And so it depends on what you need. And also, part of the way that my practice is set up, because I'm not in a clinic from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, my schedule is really centered around who I'm working with. So there are weeks where I'm working Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday, but I'm not working Wednesday and Thursday, or I'm only doing virtual appointments there. And so that's what's nice about my practice at this time. I can kind of customize it to what's needed. I've also traveled to people. I've gone to other states where I've attended a surgical appointment where somebody who needed a second opinion. And so, they contracted me for a certain amount of time to observe whether or not they needed this surgery. The person ended up not needing the surgery. We did one session of energy work. I made some recommendations for some DNA testing that they needed, and then I created a summary. And I went to that appointment with them. So I spent the day in another state doing that. And so it's really flexible. Those who want to come see me here in Chicago, even one time, it's easy to do. If you want to do something virtual, I offer a 15-minute complimentary visit so that you can come and talk with me. So I offer for free what I used to do for the whole visit, because since I now have the luxury of seeing people for an hour. So if somebody wants to see if it's a good fit, they can always jump on a 15-minute visit with me just to see what's going on. I always offer some tips and tricks during that session, but to see if there's something more that I can do. So yes, I can come out to someone. I can do these weekend intensives where we spend 3 days and I just observe for the first day what's going on. And then, there's people who just want to know, what am I doing wrong, or what are things in which I can improve? And I do that for people as well. And then there's people here in Chicago that see me in person on a weekly basis, and we do an intensive 90-day thing where they lose weight, they get energy healing. And so the in-person part is so that you can benefit from the hands-on. It doesn't need to be hands-on to still benefit.
Awesome. So again, how do people reach out to you?
So they can either track me down. I'm on all the social media. So you can get on my Linktree/IntuitiveMD, or go to my website, which is intuitivemdhealth.com. And if you really want to bypass all of that, you can always email me at info@intuitivemdhealth.com, and somebody will get out to you shortly. So that comes straight to me. And so that's the quickest way to get my feedback. But all of those things on my Linktree at /IntuitiveMD. It has my Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and the links to the walking challenge that I do monthly and everything else.
Awesome. Well, that was amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it. So we're going to move on to, I told you I was going to take it easy on you. We're going to move on to that real ass question of the day.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. Now, we've all had those childhood bullies that we just really don't forget. So, being a successful doctor, and you're in need of someone to manage your appointment desk. So, the girl that gave you pure hell in school comes to you for an interview. Now, during the interview, you can tell that she doesn't remember you. And out of all your interviewees, she is the most qualified. So, do you hire her even though she was horrible to you in school?
That's a great question. I love this. And this was taking it easy on me because now I'm getting flashbacks. So I have somebody in mind. And here's the thing. I think I'm somebody who always likes to see the good in someone. And so even though I was very briefly tortured by this person for everything, back in middle school, over time, I think we came to a mutual sort of agreement that I'm not who she thought I was, and that she's not trying to ruin my life. And so for me, I kind of think about life in these things that we think maybe were bad. I always say good. It made me push to be a better person, or good. It made it so that I didn't bully someone because I knew it felt so terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's the most qualified person. I would really want to dive into who she is now, right? And so part of an interview is not just about like how qualified the person is. It's going to be, are they a good fit for your organization? And so I'm going to have that back into my mind. And I'm such a straight shooter. I might even say, hey, so and so, you may not remember, but remember when you did X, Y, and Z to me? And I would want to see what is her response to that. If it was one of those things like, I really didn't remember, but I was, a crap child at that time. And since then, I've done X, Y, and Z. You're on board. I think there's always room for second chances, and always room to allow somebody, like I said, there's always an opportunity to turn something all around. And so just because she was like that when we were kids and may have treated me badly, I think for me, I would still give her the opportunity. And I always say, give someone the opportunity to offend you. And so I'm never going to come at somebody with this idea that, oh no, I know who they are, because we all have the right to change.
Yes.
And so for me, I would give her the opportunity. But here's the thing, you can also be smart about it, right? And so maybe it's a 90-day probation thing, or maybe it's a week so that you can really see if this is a good fit. And so you give her the opportunity.
Yeah. Just like Ashley was talking about her when she hiring, just like you're automatically on a probation. So you're not officially hired until we see if you're a good fit. So I like that. But I would tell you, for me, it'll be in the back of my mind, though. I'll be looking a little side-eyed. Like, okay, we're going to see if you have changed.
I think that's just being smart, right? Like, I know what she can do. I know the terror that she can exact. So I think it would just only be smart to think about in the back of your mind. But I think we do need to give people, and I think sometimes in this day and age, we're so quick to cancel people. And I think there is room for grace. Give people the opportunity to offend or before you really cancel them, especially when we're kids. I'm sure there are things I've done during my childhood that I would not want dragged into the presence as, proof of who I am today.
Agreed. DJ Talented, what do you think?
I don't know. See, I had some real bullies back in school because I was super skinny, small. A lot of people tried to, but yeah, I had to give them a 2-day. You better get it right in 2 days or you're gone.
They better have it right, huh?
Right.
Yeah, I would be Dr. Martin. I'm like you. I would remind them. Oh, I remember you, and we have a conversation. So you wouldn't be just like, first, I have to see, because those childhood bullies you just never forget.
Oh man, so I kind of like that answer, the 2-day thing. I think maybe I'd have my eyes on them for those first 2 days, see if there's any sign of that bully coming out. I like that.
Yep. All right, let's move on to celebrating some Black excellence. Okay, so every week we recognize and celebrate the achievements and contributions African Americans have made to this country. So today we celebrate Rebecca Lee Crumley, the first African American woman to become a doctor of medicine in the United States. Rebecca was born in Delaware and raised in Massachusetts by her aunt, who acted as the town doctor. This had a huge influence on Rebecca's decision to pursue a career in medicine. She worked as a nurse before applying and becoming accepted into the New England Female Medical College. Rebecca was the only African American student at the school. And despite the intense racism and sexism while practicing medicine, Rebecca became one of the first female physician authors in the 19th century. The Rebecca Lee Pre-Health Society at Syracuse University and Rebecca Lee Society, one of the first medical societies for African American women, were named after her. Her Joy Street house in Beacon Hill is still a stop on the Boston Women's Heritage Trail. So today, Rebecca, we salute you and your contributions to making this country great. Rest in peace. All right, announcements. Night of Expression Artist Showcase starting at 7 p.m. at the Limelight Theater here in Atlanta. On November 23rd, we will have some amazing artists gracing the stage for one night only. So get your tickets at www.noeatlanta.com. All right, that is our show. But before we close, we need to pay some bills. Here's a word from our sponsor, Terradome Entertainment. Terradome Entertainment. We turn your fear of dreaming into amazing realities. If your dream is to become a photographer, we have a nice intimate photo studio just for you. If you want to record that next hit song or do voiceover work, we have a state-of-the-art studio also for you. If you want to professionally record your own podcast, well, we have that too. Check us out at www.terradomeentertainment.com. we are the only ones to turn your fear of dreaming into amazing realities. So shout out to Dude over there, producer extraordinaire, for some of those beats. If you have any questions or comments, email us at info@terradoneent.com. That's info@terradoneent.com. Final words, DJ Talented.
If you're a bully, smack yourself. That's all.
Oh, okay. Dr. Martin, any final word, final thoughts?
No, thank you for having me on, and everyone spend a little time taking care of yourself today.
There you go. All right, we're going to go ahead on and get to the Real Ass Check Your Truth time.
And here we go.
All right. So October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's a powerful time of unity, hope, and strength as we come together to illuminate the fight against breast cancer. This month is dedicated to empowering individuals with the vital knowledge of early detection, reminding us that tools like mammograms can save lives by identifying the disease in its earliest stage. Beyond raising awareness, October Leave serves as a heartfelt celebration of resilience and courage. To the brave survivors who inspire us daily, and to the cherished souls we've lost, we stand with you, arm in arm, in solidarity and love. Let's continue to spread the hope and support, paving the way for a brighter future for those affected by breast cancer. I am your president of the Real Ass People Society. God bless you and these United States of America. All right, Real Ass quote of the day. Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all the darkness. Never give up because your miracle could be right around the corner. All right. Join us in the Real Ass People Society crew here on Terradome Entertainment Radio, and catch the replays of Terradome on TerradomeENTradio.com or Terradome ENT YouTube or on your podcast apps. You can hit us up at IG at PowerHour_Raps_Crew. I am your president, MiZZ Entertainment. You can contact me at MiZZ_Entertainment_ATL. And my chief entertainment officer,
DJ Talented_1 on all socials.
All right, Dr. Martin, again, how can folks reach out to you?
You can reach me at Instagram at TheIntuitiveMD, LinkedIn / I think Dr. Martin MD. Again, that's on my Linktree /IntuitiveMD, or at info@intuitivemdhealth.com.
All right, as always, I leave you with this. Be kind to each other, love one another, keep God first. Thank you for joining. Stay safe, and we're out.